record this real quick. So yeah, hopefully this process and the daunting process of writing an essay or multiple essays will be a little bit easier as we go through this slideshow. So again, if you're just jumping in, what we're going to do is I'm going to share about the different things. We're going to explore the website. You're going to start a UC account if you haven't already. Then you're going to, I'm going to talk about the process and hopefully give you some practical tips. And then lastly, you're going to hear from alumni and ask questions, okay? And this totally how you feel is important in this process. If you don't share how you feel, whether you feel overwhelmed now, we're not going to be able to support each other. So I would love for us to be supporting each other through this process. That's why you're here. Those of you that are not in my Pathways class, you're here because you care about that and you're taking this extra step. Those in my Pathways class, this is just what we're doing. And we all voted to have class on Wednesday nights, and hopefully this will be beneficial by hearing voices from our alumni as well. So a lot of you have a bunch of different wonderings. I'm going to come back to those, especially throughout tonight. Okay. So obviously the personal insight questions are a UC thing, right? So Berkeley, UCSD, UCLA, UCSB, Merced, Riverside, etc. Okay. And so looking through the process, understanding that the UC personal insight question, you write one set of it and you just check off the boxes of the colleges you want to apply to. And then you're good. Okay. And then the same essays get sent to all of them. If you're talking about Common App, so some of you are applying to private colleges, okay, which again, applying to private colleges is a good thing, especially because a lot of them will offer fee waivers. Why not give it a shot? You have to write an extra essay, but sometimes you could tweak your UC essays to fit that, okay? And so if you're in the Common App, you can actually write specifically, there are specific Common App questions for individual colleges, like supplementals, but there are the core essays that will go to all of your Common Apps. So understanding that, going through the process, once you create the account, you're going to see, and when you check off the different, like, I guess, colleges that you're applying to, you'll see what the requirements are. Okay. So every school's got different ones for the Common App, but for the UCs, it is the same pool that you're going to be pulling from. So I want to know where you all are at. And this is like a draggable, so you can drag your dot to where you feel. You might be in between two stages. You might be more on one side. I'd love to hear where you guys are at.
Sorry, I'm late, Mr. Lou. What are we doing exactly?
It's okay. So you're jumping into this pair deck. So if you go to joinpd.com, the link's in the chat, and you're just jumping in so that we can, we're talking about the essay portions. So let's see where y'all are at, and it doesn't show your name. So drag where you're at. And if you look, we got a lot of people that are leaning on you have ideas, but you're not sure where to start. You know, we got one or two in the two, maybe three, still wrapping your mind around the essays. Some haven't started, but eager to start. And looks like we have quite a couple writing your essays. Okay, cool. Stop moving it. Oh my gosh, this is not a game. So we're going to talk about a few things. So first is the process. So looking at the PIQ, personal insight question prompts, as well as it is going to be a part of that, okay? And then you're going to brainstorm, not today, but these are the process that I'd like y'all to follow. You're going to brainstorm each of the prompts. Now you have 8, you really have to write 4, but I'm asking you to write 5 or choose about 5 to write full ones because you're going to get picky and you're going to wish you did more, okay? Third part of the process is using Google Docs. So Google Docs, you can see revision history, but you know, as things get edited in and out, you're going to have, and I'm going to show you how to apply this, okay? You want to keep previous versions just in case you said something that you said well, but maybe when you revise it, you're like, I'm not sure if I want this. And then you don't want to like keep clicking undo, right? And especially if that was like months before or a month before, you don't know. So using Google Docs is huge. And a big part is autosave. Okay. I cannot tell you how many people try to do it on their laptops and something crashes, something doesn't work, and all of a sudden you are screwed and you have to write it from square one. Okay. So Google Docs, huge. And then the last part is the editing process. So finding people that you trust to edit, and I'll talk about maybe what are some key identifiers of that, of people that can help you. Okay. So let's first look at the prompts and a short description. So if you click this link, you're going to be brought to a website that has all 8 prompts plus a little description. And I just want you guys to take a look at what prompts there are there and just skim through it. I'm not asking you to read it thoroughly and what you think. So take maybe like a minute to do that. And these links, as well as these links as well as this presentation will be posted on my website so that you guys can access that. So you'll see them in bigger fonts. I know some of you are also applying to other schools in the private school system. And if you look on the right side, I know, for example, I believe, Sebastian, you're applying to BC or BU?
Boston U.
BU. Okay. So then there's supplemental essay prompt guides here, right? And so being able to overlap those, and again, those of you applying to private colleges should definitely be applying to the UC ones as well, right? To give yourself some options. But you'll see overlap between these essay prompts. Awesome. So, moving back along, what were some of the things that stuck out to y'all? Any essay prompts that you're like, ooh, like, I feel like I can write about that one? Yeah. How many of you guys have like, I guess raising your hands, like how many of you guys have maybe like, ooh, I saw 2 that I really feel like I can write well? Okay. How many of you are like, oh, there's 3 maybe? How many of you guys are like 4 maybe, but that's kind of pushing it, I'm not really sure, I'm like, right? And so you start to realize that a lot of these options that you have you're gonna have to rack your mind around that. And so as you look through the essay writing process or the personal insight question process, you're going to have to go through a brainstorm process, and that's just natural. Okay. This brainstorm process, this is my process that I advise y'all to do. You can obviously brainstorm however you want, but brainstorming goes, it's about what you want them to know about you, right? And I put in parentheses, write that on top, which means at the top of the essay, you want to convey a message about you. Now, if you have 4 essays, how many things do you think you can tell the UC readers about you? How many? Give you a hint. I'm holding the number up right now. Right, 4. Okay. Any more than that, it starts to get blurred. Okay. Any more than that, it starts to get blurred. It's 4 essays of 350 words. You're not going to be able to convey multiple things unless you're going to give them a list of all the things that you want them to know about yourself. Okay. And it's not about what you tell them, it's about what you show them. And that's going to be a key part of the brainstorming process. And why do I say write that on top? I just kind of want to share a really quick story. In my life, and I'm kind of like, low-key flexing right now, but like in my life, I've been a best man at a wedding 3 times. 3 times, 4 times I've spoken, but 3 times I've been the best man. The first time I did it, I butchered it. Okay. I thought you're supposed to do what, like the make fun of them and their exes kind of thing, and it'll be really funny and everyone will laugh. And I stood up there and I sounded like an idiot. People laughed. Okay. People did laugh. It was somewhat funny. Some of it was nervous laughter. This is kind of painful, but I'll kind of laugh because that's what he wants us to do right now. And I went back and I thought to myself, I was like, I planned this so hard. The jokes were going to hit, the punchlines were going to be awesome. And I went back and I was like, what did I do wrong? Right. And I realized what I did wrong was, well, what's the purpose of a best man speech? Anyone want to, throw out something? What's the purpose of a best man speech? What do you think?
I don't know. Aren't you just supposed to like hype them up or something?
Okay, so you hype them up, right? So hype them up could be something that I could do, right? I mean, is part of my job as a best man to like bash him and just like make him feel embarrassed? Probably not on his wedding day, right? Elsewhere, maybe, but probably not on his wedding day. And so what ended up happening was I was like, man, I'm supposed to honor him on his wedding day. Now, can I have jokes in there? Yes, like you want to keep everyone engaged and whatnot. But the main job of me as his best man giving the speech was to honor him. And so for the next 2 times that I had my speech, every time at the top of the essay, I wrote, honor him, right? And every time I wrote something, a story, I wrote an example, I wrote an encouragement at the end, I always pointed back to the top and I went, am I honoring him with this joke? Am I honoring him with this message? Am I honoring him, or am I just doing that? And anything, and there's going to be some good nuggets, y'all. You guys have lived full lives, okay? And if it doesn't point to the direction that you're trying to show them about yourself, don't put it in, right? And so the brainstorm process allows you to filter that out. The brainstorm process allows you to write as much as you want and to do it. Well, Mr. Lou, I have 350 words, so how long should my brainstorm be? Well, I'd say your brainstorm, as you write and write and write, should be about 500 words, okay? And I'll talk about why, okay, in a second. You're going to brainstorm what you want to write about. You're going to brainstorm stories. You're going to brainstorm your experiences. And I'm going to tell you, it's okay to mess up. The brainstorm is exactly meant to filter out things that need to be filtered out. And that's absolutely okay. Okay. Any questions on this brainstorm process so far? Okay. So I'm going to share with y'all a little bit. Hopefully you have your volumes on, not too loud, but decently loud right now, because I'm going to share an analogy of what I want you to think of the essay as. Okay. Now, normally when you write an essay, I go, hey, I need 2 pages. So then most of y'all go, okay, I'm going to write, some of y'all will push it and be like, let me write a page and a half and see if I can get credit. Or some of you go, ooh, 2 pages. Awesome. Some of you will be maybe a little bit overachievers and you'll go, ooh, let me go 2 pages and a paragraph, right? So traditionally we think of essays as, I write it, I'm done. Good. Okay. I don't want you to think of it as that. I want you to think of your essays as a work of art. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to be philosophical. I'm trying to give you an actual example. So my example for y'all to see is this. Okay. The revision process is a long, arduous process. It is like sculpting. Okay. Now, if you've ever been to I don't know, I think Balboa Park's got some statues, right? If you've ever been to a place with statues and seen that, they don't go, ooh, like this rock looks like the leg and this rock looks like another leg. Let me glue it together, right? Sculptures actually look like this. Now I'm going to skip to the part that I need you to see.
The sculpture begins in the quarry.
You guys can hear, right?
Italy has always been known as the home of the most beautiful marble in the world.
Okay, so we're looking at like sculptures.
Found in the mountains
but
of Carrara.
Obviously they're not like, ooh, like
Michelangelo
two
famously
together.
made it his material of choice, with most notable artists following in his marble and sculptor. Even the sketches and models
like,
are
why
carved
is
in
Mr. Lou
marble.
showing us this? But I'll get to it.
The idea takes shape at the very first step, with the understanding of the qualities of the material. After studying the block of marble, a drawing helps define the outlines of the sculpture in the block. The process of carving follows the outlines. Step by step, marble is removed according to the drawing. Angle grinders with diamond blades and grinders with specially shaped diamond tools help the carving process. This natural and spiritual journey keeps the artist excited and happy about doing his work.
So again, why am I sharing this? Because I actually think that it's important for y'all to see that your essays are like a sculpture. Okay, it's okay. You should have 500 words, and then you can whittle down the excess stuff, right? You can trim the fat. You can take out the excess rock, right? The excess marble or whatever, right? But imagine if you just had barely enough, right? If you go, oh, it's 350 words, let me write 350. Well, now you got no wiggle room, right? Now you're trying to like, imagine if they were told to sculpt this and the piece of rock was too little, and they go, oh, like, I guess maybe we can attach this one to make this work in addition to it, right? And I guess she's missing a leg because we didn't plan enough for enough rock, so let me just attach another. Like, that's not how it works. Okay, that's not how you're going to get the most perfect piece of essay that you have. Okay, and I think that's important for us to understand. The revision process is a long, arduous process. It is something that you have to be whittling things down, and it's not going to be easy necessarily. But I promise you, that's the best way to create the finished product that I think you guys will be proud of. Okay, so I want to share the steps. So you can totally do more than these steps. And step one is blabber, get as much info together. It's kind of like that brainstorm. How like they're asking me about my strengths. Let me just list a bunch of my strengths, and let me just talk about these stories of my strength and blah, 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 right? Step two is focus. So choose where you want to focus. And what I'm going to tell you when I read your essays, if you're asking me to read your essays, I'm not telling you to read that I have to, but if you want me to read your essays, I'm going to tell you, hey, you need to focus on this. You're talking about your strengths as an organization and you care about people. Well, again, your focus has to be one thing, not two things, right? So I'm going to tell you, choose one of your focuses, right? Choose what you want to focus on, because then step three, we're going to refine your examples. What shows that you care? What shows that you're organized, right? Make it personal, because the things that are most memorable are things that are personal, right? And then step four, grammar and formatting. This is like the details at the end, right? Like, what do I need to write? How do I need to convey it? This is when the word count gets fit into, right? This is when you're like, ooh, instead of saying should not, or instead of saying shouldn't, I maybe should put should not, and I have enough words to do that. Or instead of saying, when I was in high school, I wanted to start a club and this club was meaningful to me, you might go, my high school didn't have Mecha, a meaningful club to express my heritage, right? So you're rephrasing sentences and reframing this. Anyone in our alumni will attest to this when they jump in. They'll attest to that, this idea that there's many ways to say the thing. There's a nicer way to say the thing. There's a wordy way to say the thing. You do it all the time, right? In fact, you do it when you write your essays. Oh man, Mr. Liu told me to write a 2-page thing. Or Mr. Liu told me to write 3 pages of notes for the chapter. Let me, instead of saying, I don't know, Alexander Hamilton did this, you'll write, Alexander Hamilton had an idea, and then he like just reverse that, right? You'd like normally try to add words because you're trying to fulfill a word requirement. I guarantee you when we get to step 4, it's about like, ooh, I'm going to reverse that. I know how to make things wordy. Can I make things more concise yet still have the same impact? Okay. And so when we get to these, if you're in my pathways class, I'll be meeting with y'all each step of the way, which is like, hey, group 1, hey, where are we at here, right? Like, what are we looking at? And if there's any questions. What's up, Isabel?
It's because I know that on the schedule type thing that you've sent out, or like that's on your Weebly, you were gonna meet with different classes or like different groups.
Mm-hmm.
That's still going on? Or?
It is. I think I'm behind because I did not anticipate with the shift with Wednesdays. So I'm going to be adjusting to that. And then I didn't know online days were going to be like this. So that kind of totally threw me off by a couple. So I'm finishing my round 1s. I will finish that next week for sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, totally. Any other questions while we're here on this process? Does it make sense? I hope that this makes sense to y'all, that y'all understand like where I'm trying to get at with all of this.
If we want you to read our essays, can we just like send them to you?
Yeah, and so I'll talk to, especially since you're in my pathways class, we'll talk through the process where it's like, hey, what step of the process are we at, right? You know, your brainstorming phase, like I'll tell you usually to whittle that down. But once we get to step 2 and 3, 2, 3, I'm going to grind hard on y'all, like just like, hey, like, let me see this. And if you're willing to share that with me, and we'll talk about who you want to edit your essays at the last slide here. Good question though. So I'm going to give you guys some examples now. We're not going to have time to read this, but I want you to look at this, right? This idea of writing your ideas down and being able to maybe brainstorm that, right? So maybe you're reading this right now and that's fine. I'm going to skip through this because there's 4 versions of this, right? This is version 1, the very first one. This student wanted to share the experience of learning language, right? And learning in school. So version 2, you'll see I start to share, hey, like what can we add here, right? And you'll see it increased from a 310 word thing to 340. Hey, you need to throw more in. Okay. I obviously would have liked for a little bit more, but you know, at that point, she was in a good part of the process, right? And then we get to more, and I start to look at, hey, how are you presenting these things? And I'll do a lot of big chunk highlights. You know, sometimes I'll throw in some word stuff every once in a while. If there's something that really bothers me, I'll be like, hey, maybe don't say this word, maybe say this word, or maybe say it like this. But for the most part, I'm looking at big chunk things. Hey, what does this mean? I decided I wanted to end the support, but in order to do so, I had to change my mindset and focus in school. For a short amount of time, I continued to work in groups, spent more time reading to improve my vocabulary, studied harder. Many teachers helped me overcome my educational barriers, and I've grown and matured from my first years in school. Now, read enough at first glance, it sounds good, okay? But I don't think it's good enough, right? I think you have to be able to be more specific. Okay, cool, your teachers cared about you and wanted you to overcome your challenges. What teacher doesn't, right? They're going to be reading hundreds of essays that share the same thing. What if you shared a story? Okay. What if you shared a story about an impactful teacher that did something radical that person, when they read it, they'll remember it, right? And so looking through that, right? If you look at this change in the story, I remember in 2nd grade, my classmates had to choose, right, to be that person, to be the representative. And out of all this, they selected me, the girl who had trouble in math and English, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, she's got a story that makes it, ooh, like this girl was chosen, right? And this teacher helped in that process. And so through looking at this, you know, obviously the students had 382 words. We ended up whittling it down, okay? Another example, you'll see version 1 to the final version, okay? You see it's 4 paragraphs down to 3 paragraphs, right? I talk about how I like the way that the prompt was attacked, but spend more time talking about the steps you took, right? Again, it's about this process and how do you develop this process and go through this process to make this good, right? So even if you look at the beginning, right? You can't because you're a girl, right? Okay, that what's from the original one, right? But I am very passionate. Well, that's not there anymore, right? I am without a doubt. I am without a doubt, right? And then my contrasting beliefs turn to my ambitions, right? So again, like sometimes, and we'll get to this when we get to the editing part, it's not about the negative. I think sometimes we can focus on the negative part of the story, right? But all of a sudden when you bring it to about your ambition and how that helps you, that's actually going to be really important. Okay. So I want to just encourage y'all with this, and this is just examples, and I have a lot of versions of examples, and when y'all are done writing it, I'd love to use y'all, if you're comfortable with it, in examples of, how do things improve? How do these essays go through this step, right? How does it go from a block, a chunk of just ideas, into a sculpture, right? That gets you into the school that you want to get into, right? How does this exemplify who this person is, right? And I think that's huge. Like, I'd actually, we do have about 7 minutes. I think we have enough time here before our alumni jump in. Some of them are already in here. Thank you all for joining. But let's read this part, right? Actually, yeah, let's read this one and then we can read the other one if we have time. So you can't because you're a girl. As the first daughter of parents with an antiquated belief system, I faced countless conflicts regarding my limitations as a female. It was a struggle for them to comprehend the significance of my academics, considering they did not anticipate my success, a mentality driven by patriarchal values in today's unjust society. I'm very passionate about my potential, and growing up in an environment that underestimated me significantly compromised my self-confidence. I strongly believe that success is earned. Never could I accept that because of my gender, I could not pursue all the things I wished. The attitude gradually became the drive behind all of my aspirations. I am, without a doubt, my parents' greatest handful, a title I've acquired going through sustained disagreement. My contrasting beliefs made me very independent growing up. I could never rely on my family's help with academics. I was pushed to seek resources outside of home and become educated on singularly tackling situations. Success was a greater challenge for me as I lacked the support of my parents. Yet, I worked extra hard to persist and held on to my desire to thrive, a path that has not only made me a stronger individual, but also one more equipped to handle any situation that may present itself at college. My ambition also extended into extracurricular activities. I joined wrestling one year, and not much to my surprise, I was one of only 3 girls on the team. Exposing myself to new conditions gave me further insight of my capabilities, both physical and mental. My experience with both academics and wrestling taught me that strength and power is derived from the mind, an aspect that many, including my relatives, tend to overlook. By being the first woman to attend a university in my family and not allowing patriarchal values to limit my success, I aspire to use my mind to not only prove my family wrong, but more importantly, have a positive influence on the lives of incoming female generations. Yes, I am a girl, and yes, I can. I'd obviously like more story as we talk through that, but I mean, just looking at the differences between this, right? You're going to see that it was a huge improvement, right? To focusing and whittling it down to getting it to where you need it to be. Okay. So it is important. Now, why use Google Docs? The importance of keeping track of your versions, date of when they were revised, and who is revising is important. So a little bit of practical stuff here. When you create your Google Doc, here's an example header, but to be organized, otherwise it gets crazy. So personalized like questions, example headers. So you might go, hey, this is prompt 1, brainstorm version 1. And sometimes I actually really appreciate this, which is when you actually, and your readers, especially if you have them read more than one essay, like put the prompt at the top. Tell us about your greatest success or greatest overcome, blah, 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 right? Like, and you could put that on there, okay? And then prompt 1, brainstorm, or maybe version 1, etc. Date, September 9th, 2020. Let's just say it's your brainstorm, right? For prompt 1. Then you might go on the next page. You keep everything, even with the revisions and the suggestions, okay? I highly suggest that you ask them to do like the edits, not to actually edit the document, if that makes sense. So they could like highlight it and then do like, this is like suggestions, right? Google Doc suggestions. Then you would go on the next page, same thing, prompt 1, but maybe it's like version 1. So a week later, maybe I'm the one that revised it, right? And then maybe 2 months later on version 3, you're like revised by Mr. Liu and Miss V, right? And so like having to keep track of that, because then you could go, oh man, like someone did that revision. Who did it? Mr. Marcus, did you tell me to do that one thing? Like, and imagine Mr. Marcus reading like 20, 30 essays, right? Or me reading 20, 30 essays. It's like, you want me to remember that one comment that I gave you that 1 second, like 2 months ago, like, how am I supposed to do that, right? Or maybe you're at version 3 and you're like, oh, I had this really good story I wanted to do. I can't remember what it was. Oh, shoot, let me go to my brainstorm, right? Let me go to my version 1. And you're going to be able to recall that, like keeping an organized Google Doc so you can see the progression. Some people do multiple Google Docs. Hey, version 1 edits, version 2 edits, version 3 edits, okay? And I will share with you, choose your editors wisely, okay? Qualities of a good editor. 1, someone you trust. You should be writing about some deeply personal things in some of your essays, okay? Some things that are, really like from your heart, right? About your past, right? About something that other people have not read about. Like, I cannot tell you how many students that I've read things and I'm like, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry, right? Like, because they are personal and those are things that are important, okay? And then someone who has written successful essays before, just because you trust them doesn't mean that they're going to give you the best input, right? Someone that knows what they're talking about is important, right? Especially if they got into a school that you want to go into, maybe that's a good place to start, okay? Someone who has decent English skills. And then if you look, literally I write on the bullet point right after, someone who has great English skills. So my English skills are okay. My grammar and my knowledge of the English language, I can get by. But I will tell you, we have some good English teachers that can give you great grammatical feedback, that can give you great contextual feedback, that can give you great just like organizational feedback, okay? I can tell you how I would organize an essay and develop the story, but they can for sure tell you how to develop the story a little bit better, okay? That being said, too many editors is not a good thing. Some people have asked 5 to 10 people how to edit their essays, and all of a sudden you got 5 or 10 different points of view on how you should attack it. Obviously yours matters the most, but like what ends up happening is like you get caught up in so many things that you lose your voice in it. I would say 2 to 3 editors per essay, okay? So if you have the same person doing all your essays, choose the same 2 to 3 people. If you're like, ooh, this person I really trust with this because they knew me as I went through that. This is my cousin that did this, or my uncle that did this, or my aunt that did this. Yeah, give them 2 essays to edit, and maybe that's easier and more manageable for people, right? Again, knowing who you trust, knowing someone that can help you get where you want to be are really important things, right? And then obviously anyone that can help you edit the essays there would be great. So, any questions? What are some of your concerns?
Mr. Liu, I have a question.
Go for it. You can write it too, but go ahead and share it.
Okay, so you know how there's 4 essays? Would you recommend, let's say, choose one essay, give one essay to one teacher and like the others to different teachers?
Yeah, so that's actually a good way to do it, right? Again, some of you might trust, maybe some of you know and trust that many teachers, but maybe some of you, yeah. So yes, that is definitely a valid way to approach it. I wouldn't say I suggest doing that. But I don't not suggest doing that, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I also had another question.
Totally.
So this whole time I thought that the essays, they had to be focused on like your high school career, like within like that time, like the 4 years.
Now, obviously the more recent, oh my gosh, this dog is going crazy. Hold on, sorry. All right. Obviously, the more recent, the better. But man, some of y'all have gone through some things in your lifetime that are big, you know? And so acknowledging your story, it's a personal insight question, not a high school insight question. When we talk about your extracurriculars and that stuff, which I'll talk about a UC application process in the future of like the, you know, the little nooks and crannies. That is high school, limited to high school, but your personal insight question is spread across.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Leo, I had a question as well.
Go for it. Go for it.
So you know, it's because I don't know if this is like mean or not, but I was gonna say, is there any way we could look at like what a bad essay would be? Like,
Yeah,
like
and
an example of like someone's final essay that they submitted and like didn't get them
I
into
can
their school. I don't
try.
know how that would work because everyone has like different goals, right? And like every university is like different.
Definitely.
But
And
I don't know. I think it would be
that's
good to like compare.
that's a good one. I will tell you, if you there are a bunch of teachers that if you let them edit your essays from the brainstorm process, they usually tend to get you at least close to where you want to be, right? And so I'll try to see if I can look through my arsenal of essays, but I will say maybe there's some not so good first drafts. I can probably look for some not so good first drafts, but I can also show you how they've improved to like become good.
Mr. Lou,
Okay. Thank you.
I have
I
a
have a
comment too.
question.
Go for it.
Go, Lydia, go.
No, go ahead.
Well, my question is quick. What's the maximum of teachers or like people that should review our essays?
I'm going to actually let our alumni answer that question because I think that's a good question and you can gain from their perspective.
Okay, thank
so
you.
we'll keep that. I'll keep that written down for this next part. Lydia?
So I took a course at Francis Parker to like essays and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
I think I have the paper. I still have the papers, and there was like professors from like Berkeley and like all these places that read college applications,
Uh-huh.
and they were like giving us advice, and I still have the papers, and it's like what a bad essay looks like, and like transcript and grades and everything, and what to put in. I think I still have them. So I think I'll make a copy or send them to you. What a bad essay looks like, what a normal essay get into or no.
Awesome.
So at the end we had to decide who got in and who got like denied and stuff like that.
Awesome. I would love to see that, and I think that'll help with Sophia's question. Thank you, Lydia. Any major questions on what I shared? Because I really want our alumni to be doing most of the sharing, and I think they're all in here right now. Okay, no, nothing. All right, sweet. So here we go. We are going to, and Caro, I put your name here, but I guess it didn't pop up. Sorry. So let me just quickly introduce our alumni. Actually, I'll let them introduce themselves. And this is not a typo. We have two Alexa C's. Bianette and Nicole, who is jumping in soon. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Alexa.
Which one?
You guys, you go.
Hi.
Oh, not you, Alexa. Stop. Sorry. I have one right there.
Oh.
Okay, go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alexa Carrillo Espinosa, and I graduated class of 2019, and I am currently going into my second year at UC Berkeley.
Hi, my name's Alexa Correa. I go to UCSD. I'm a political science public law major, and I'm from the graduating class of 2019.
Bianette, do you want to go? I think think she's frozen. Binath, I think you're frozen. Can you hear us? Okay. Caro, do you want to go real quick?
Yeah, so my name's Caro. I go to UCSD. I'm about to start my second year. Yeah, I'm a history major. I'm pre-med. Yeah.
Awesome. And Nicole just jumped in. Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nicole Escamilla. I'm an incoming freshman at UCLA. My major is physiological science, and I am hoping to be on the pre-med track. So yeah.
Awesome. And then Binath, I think, is restarting either a computer or something. So she'll introduce herself when she gets back in here. Hey, y'all, could you just share maybe how your process looked like, and then we'll talk about some of the questions that they might have. Think back, some of you here's Binath. Some of you might have, it was a hard time. Some of you guys maybe had an easier time. Some of you wrote 1,000 essays and whatnot. So, she disappeared again. All right. So, actually she's here. Binath, are you here? Okay, we'll figure that out. Yeah. Any of you, maybe just the process, how that looked like for y'all. Let's start with Caro. How was your process?
Okay, well, I just applied. So from the beginning, I kind of knew, I didn't really know what school I wanted to go to, but I kind of knew the schools that I was wanting to apply to. So I applied to just UCs and CSUs. I didn't apply to any like private schools or anything like that. And I guess it was hard to find like the topic to like base my essays around. Like I remember I wrote a whole essay and then I showed it to one of the teachers, to Ms. Nona, and she was like, scratch it, all of it, like out, because it wasn't like a good topic. And I was kind of upset, obviously, because like I'd spent so much time working on it. But in the end, like, I was able to get like a much better topic. And I think my tip mostly would be like don't be scared to just really like go really deep. Like there might be some stuff in your life that you think like, oh, that's so too personal to like write an essay about. Like I'm not too comfortable sharing that, or like you're worried about what if I have to give it to a teacher to read, it might be awkward. I think like those are the stories that you need to be sharing, because those ultimately are the stories that like made you who you are. And so it's like something that I had to overcome, but at the end, that essay of like something that I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I should write about it, I think ended up being like one of the best ones that I wrote. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
I can go next.
Go for it. Thanks, Nicole.
Okay. So I applied using 3 different like application engines, I guess. So I used the UC one, the CSU one, and also 4. So the CSU, the UC one, Common App, and this other one called the Coalition application. And so if you guys have any questions about like Coalition application specifically, because I think I was one of the only people to use that one. So like if you guys have any schools that you're going to that are on that application, you guys can just like ask a question and I can try my best to answer it. But yeah, so in terms of the essay writing process, and like the whole application process in general, it's gonna be a really stressful time. Like you are going to be stressed, especially if you wait until the last minute. Do not wait until the last minute. Use the time that you have right now that you're home and just like look over everything and start brainstorming ideas as early as possible, because the days will start to like pass by and it's just you're gonna have less and less time, and you're gonna be even more stressed than you already are. So I really recommend you start as soon as possible. But yeah, essays, after a while, you're gonna hate your own essays because you're just rereading the same essay like 50 times. You're gonna check it like 50 times for like mistakes that like aren't even there, but then you find one and it's like, ugh. So yeah, by the end of it, you're gonna hate your essays. And Mr. Wu told me this, and I did. Like I hated my essays when I submitted them because you're always checking them. But yeah, just start as soon as possible is what I'm gonna tell you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Bianette, hey, do you want to introduce yourself? Wait, you back in here? Oh, man. Okay, never mind. Carillo, do you want to go?
Yeah. So I had kind of my mind set on a lot of private schools, so I did kind of focus on the Common App, and also it was due earlier than the UCs. So I did focus on the Common App a lot. And then when it came to applying to UCs, I was kind of like, oh, I need to do that. And I remember I had, during Pathways, they made us like brainstorm a few, and I had like one that I would always show when Mrs. Pino would check, because it's the only one that I actually had. And I remember talking to Mr. Liu, and he's like, let me see the other ones. And I'm like, there aren't any. And so that like whole, I think it was like 2 weeks waiting up to November 30th when you had to turn them in, that it was like I was grinding, which is extremely stressful, and I really don't recommend it. Like I was literally staying with like until Mr. Liu left the school. So it was like 6 p.m. and I would stay there. It was like me and Lisa on our laptops working on these essays, which isn't ideal. But I definitely think that it helped a lot just to like have this time where you're like, I need to, so it's like maybe not wait until the last minute, but definitely create that time where you're going to say, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to get up until I have something that is sufficient and something that I'm proud of. And you don't even have to be that proud of it. You just have to, like, I always would set the bar kind of low for myself. Be like, okay, yeah, now I need a break. But no, I definitely needed someone else there to like reinforce like my writing and like making sure that I was writing, because they're pretty important. And but yeah, I think it's a pretty stressful process, but definitely I think it's all up to how you space your time and how you handle it. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Bianette, is your connection good?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi just like shut off, so I was trying to figure it out.
It's all good. Do you want to introduce yourself, where you're headed, and maybe just share some of your processes?
Yeah, so I just finished my summer bridge program at UCSG, and I'm going into my fall at like October, and I went in with like a different major that I'm in right now. Right now I'm doing biochem, and I'm kind of heading towards like dermatology, so like that's where I'm at. Do you want me to speak about like my process? Okay. So for me, it was kind of hard because like when I start, like my mind is always blank. So like I don't know if you have that issue too. So like I just started to think about like what makes me different, I guess, from other people, and like basing it off my own experiences. Not just like in school, overall like my life, like my parents' life, and kind of like what got me to where I am today. And like using that, that's when I chose like the questions that would most define who I am, and like that's how I got it started for me. And yeah, and then from there I chose 3 questions, and I write a lot, and Mr. Liu helped me a lot because I know I was like babbling and like I didn't want to take off anything. And you might have that issue too, because I know some people were like complaining about like Mr. Liu because he always had like something to say about your essay. But honestly, like compared to other teachers, I feel like he helped me the most, just because like I had teachers that were like, oh, your essay is good, like you can just send it, or like they fixed grammatical errors, but that was it, not really like the message of it. And Mr. Liu helped me like literally from like what someone would say like that's perfect, and then he would be like, no, that's like trash, like, do it again. And I feel like that helped me so much because like I would compare them and I'm like, okay, how can a teacher tell me that that essay is good when it was honestly so bad compared to like that? And I'm not just saying it so you can like tell Mr. Lu to write your essays. I'm just saying it like personally for like my own essays and like the message that I was trying to go to, he was like the best fit. So I feel like I don't think it's how many teachers you go to. It's more like who's gonna help you the most for like your own essay and like the goal that you want to achieve in the school that you want to go to. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for loading now all of them. Is going to go. I'm going to ask. I'm just kidding. But I think, Bennett brings up a really good point, right? And anyone that has graduated in the past will tell you this, like, yeah, people are afraid of letting me read their essays because I will tell you honestly what I think. And maybe sometimes what I think's not right, maybe, and I'll never tell you to change it. I'll tell you, this is what I would change, right? Or I'll tell you, hey, it's not good because I don't think it's good. I'm not going to force you. If you go, this is the direction I want to go, then I'll help try to tweak that and make that better, right? And I guess, unfortunately, like how some of you guys have heard about my A-Push or AP Gov class, then you might be like Nicole and not take my AP Gov class and go Southwestern and take another path and, decide to, that's how scared you are of, taking me for 2 years in a row. But, I'm not holding anything against Nicole. Just,
Hold up. First, I tried to do that, and then the counselors made me take AP Gov, so I feel cheated.
Yeah, no, this year, there's quite a few of them that decided not to take my Gov class because they took Southwestern. But, whatever. But I guess my point is this, right? I'll give you honest feedback. And again, all these people will tell you, and anyone that I've read their essays, the first thing that I start off with saying is like, hey, thank you for trusting me with this, right? And I'll actually tell you, like, I think almost everyone here, the alumni, I can tell you what at least one of their essays was about, right? Just off the top of my head. Because I think it is meaningful. I think it is impactful. And I think the way that you bring about your story is tremendously important. Korea, you want to go?
Yeah. So for me, I also wrote like common app essays and then UC essays. But what best worked for me was definitely looking like really analyzing each prompt and thinking like which prompts I could tell a story from, especially because my essays I kind of did it like a story kind of type of way. And after that, like I also did like an outline for each essay just because I know I'm the kind of person that I have to know kind of what each paragraph is going to be about because I write a lot and Mr. Luke can say like I write a lot. And so what best worked for me was doing an outline for each essay. And also like I had a lot of teachers edit my essays, like 4 of them, and also like some of my friends. So kind of like looking at what people you can trust and that are gonna give you like good feedback. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Actually, I should probably stop sharing this right now. So, a lot of y'all just heard from our alumni. What questions might you have? Like, what questions do you have right now? And if you want to throw it in the chat, that's fine. So I can share that. Or if you feel comfortable unmuting yourself, I think that's probably the most efficient way to get through this next part. So what are some questions that you have about that process that they went through? Maybe how they were feeling, all of that stuff. If that's something that's worrying you.
I have a question. What's something you guys wish someone told you guys before you went to university? Or like what's something you wish you knew? I guess like advice or something, I don't know.
Is this about college in general or is this about the essay process?
Oh, just in general. I mean, sure. Actually, yeah, the essay. That's better.
Okay, yeah, let's keep that focus and then we can get to that at the end. But yeah, what's something you wish someone told you about the process?
Okay, I'll just go. Like real quick about the college question, just don't procrastinate because I procrastinated a lot and I did not do good. And I only had 2 classes, so yeah. Anyway, so what I wish I knew was that honestly, don't like so what you have like originally, don't like hold on to it too much, because that's what I was doing. Like a lot of time I was like, no, like I don't want to let that go. Like it sounds good, but it really did not sound good. It was just like me wanting to hold on to that piece because I thought it was important. Focus more on like sending a message and like getting your emotions through the paper, rather like everything that you want to say. Kind of like concise that one part of it into like your whole essay, I would say. And just focus on like your goal and like what you want the reader to like leave when reading your essay.
I would kind of like say the same thing. Just like don't be afraid to just cut things out. And like in one of the essays, I was like telling a story, and I was like, I need them to know all of these details. Like I need to know exactly what happened, and it was like, no, like it's not that important. Like what matters, like being said, is like the message at the end, and just like don't forget that. Like don't tell the story and then just kind of be like, that's it. Like always just end it like strong. And yeah, like again, just like don't be scared to go really personal. I think that's like my biggest tip.
I'll like add on to what they were saying. Like also don't be afraid to just talk about yourself. Like just make it all about yourself, because that's really what you're writing these essays for. So like these people, they don't want to know about like your friends and like whatever. They want to know about you. So like don't be afraid to like write like I, because I know I'm not used to writing all about myself. I always try to make it like general. So yeah, but that's what they're looking for. They want to know who you are and like how, especially like how this specific like situation like impacted you and how you changed because of this certain like event or this like thing that happened. So yeah, don't be afraid to write about yourself.
I think tagging along to what Nicole said, I remember I was like writing, I think one of my essays was about cheer, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like throw my best friend's name in there and like show how much she means to me. And then somebody was like, cut that out, like, no, that's irrelevant. And I was like, okay. But in the end, it helps because you have to stay under like a certain word count and like a certain thing. So you need to like make sure you really make the most out of each word that you're putting in there. And I think also what's good to know is like you really want these essays to be a showcase of who you are. And every year what the universities are looking for changes, and you never really know what it is. I know a story of when I was up in campus, somebody told me that it was like a pair of sisters, and the oldest sister like did her personal insight questions, sent it to Berkeley, got in, and then the sister literally copy pasted her essays, like changed a few things, sent them, but then she got rejected. I don't know if it was because it was the same thing, but like it changes what they're looking for, and you want it to be as genuine as possible. Like I don't think you can really go wrong if you showcase, if you're really true to yourself within these essays, and they really show the pieces of you that you want to be seen.
Awesome. Those are great responses, right? This idea of making one, not being afraid to whittle it down, right? I can't tell you how many times that I've read like paragraphs about family members, and it's like you literally, the only thing part where you talked about yourself was when you said my dad or like my brother or my sister. Like that's the only part where it talks about you, right? So good advice. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if any of you felt like maybe like one of your essays wasn't like personal enough.
I'm like looking through mine right now. Hold on, because I don't remember.
I guess I'll just answer it. Yeah, I remember like in the beginning there was like this essay that had like, I mean it had to do with me, but it was very like about my family. So like it wasn't really about me, and I didn't like it at all. Like it was the worst essay like I would say. And Mr. Liu would tell me a lot too, like, okay, you can't talk about them. And I was like, yeah, like I gotta talk about them. But once I like made it more about like my impact on my family, like if you're talking about that, or like your impact on a certain person, don't really talk about like the storyline, talk more about like what you did. And I feel like that will change like the course of it, like making it impersonal to personal. And then like for me, like it ended up being my favorite essay. So like just work on it and like change it to make it for you.
That's literally the essay that I remember for you, Vienna. Like that's when I think like that was the essay that I remember.
I guess I'll share a little bit too. Right now that I think talking about like making it like more personal, I think it's really important to keep in mind like don't add a lot of what is it like fluff? Because I remember like my first draft of my essays, we cut down so much because it just was like random information that I had just added to like make the word limit or the word count. And like I remember I was writing one about volleyball and I just started writing about like other people and like what they were doing, and it just like wasn't about myself, or like just adding like little like sentences that like you're adding it because like it sounds good normally, but it's like not relevant to your essay right now. Like you don't need to add like details like, oh, this day was like this type of weather. Like you just got to keep it super concise, because in the end like you're gonna like try to cut down as much as you can, and like stuff like that is just gonna like take away space from talking about yourself.
It's good. Abigail, does that answer your question? Kind of like how you could transform that? Awesome. More questions. What are your thoughts? Like, even if someone wants to just share how they're feeling right now so that we can, like, I guarantee you are not alone in this.
Wait, I had a quick question.
Go for it, Edna.
Like I personally have problems with how like I start my essays, like getting like the best sentence to start with to catch the reader's attention. So I was wondering like what were your ideas on the process of starting it and like getting the best first sentence like to grab the reader's attention?
I think for that one, I struggle with that like a lot too, and I'm like, I can't start this until I have the proper hook that's going to engage the readers. But I think not getting rid of that mentality, but like being able to step away and like typing out just like, well, I would just start by like typing out everything that I felt like needed to be said. And then you can always like work backwards, and then based off of like the essay that you have, you can come up with like a proper thing that you think really introduces your topic and really introduces what you want your message to be. But yeah, I think for me, at least personally, it's easier to like know where I'm going with it and then be able to find a topic sentence that's fitting and flows with the rest of the essay. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that helped. Thank you.
So all of you were once seniors. How did you balance senior year, possibly taking Southwestern classes or UCSD classes while writing your essays with everything going on? So like, can you give some, what'd you do to, relieve some of that stress? What'd you do to manage that stress? What'd you do to be productive in all areas?
Use your time and pathways. The first part of it, I did not do anything in class. It was so bad. And then like once I realized, I was like, oh my god, like I have to like really pay attention to it. I would just kind of like remove myself. I guess you can't do this because you're not in a class, but just kind of like ignore everybody else during that time, because that's time that they give you guys like specifically dedicated to that, and it's like super useful. And now looking back on it, I really wish I had taken more advantage of that time, because it's just like there for you. you know, like you don't have to go so much back home and like work on it as much as you would if you didn't take advantage of that time. And that's going to stress you out more if you have to like still go home, do homework, do essays. And if you get that work done at that point, then like it's like you're good. I did my work for that day. And then, you know, like I'll go home and worry about my school stuff, and it's like separated, you know. That's what I would say.
Yeah, just like Caro said, like definitely use pathway, because like also like Caro, like the first couple of weeks I would not do anything, but then what I did and what worked for me was like I kind of just put deadlines for myself, and like, okay, by the end of this week I'm gonna have this essay done, because especially if you're gonna have like teachers like peer edit your essay, you also want to look at comments and like double check them and everything. So I say like put like give enough time for like each essay, and don't procrastinate and leave them like all the way till the end.
Mr. Liu, I have a question. It kind of correlates to what she said.
Go for it.
How many teachers or like people did you guys have to read your guys' essays? Like, what was the max that you guys had?
I had like 4 or 5 teachers check my essays, and I had like other 2 friends like Caro who checked my essays as well.
Yeah, I had friends too, and then I had 3 teachers. And Mr. Liu, and then 2 English teachers checked my essays.
I only actually had, I think Mr. Liu was the only teacher from school who I asked to check mine. And then I had a lot of help. Oh my God. My thing is like glitching. Okay, sorry. I had a lot of help from my parents because they're also teachers. So yeah, it was mostly Mr. Liu and help from my parents.
I had like 4 teachers kind of revise it, but if I'm being honest, out of those 4 teachers, I only had like when Mr. Liu actually like helped me, because I mean Mr. Marcus too, because he helps a lot with like grammatical stuff, but overall like yeah, one teacher just told me it was okay, and another teacher just like switched it, and it was weird because like she had an input, like she wanted me to write more about like unimportant stuff, and Mr. Liu was like, no, like why did you add that? So yeah, I don't know, it's more like, I guess, like whose perspective you trust more on your essay.
And it's part of the process too, right? Sorry, like it's just part of that process where like Bina had to figure that out, right? And sometimes for some of you it'll be the opposite, right? I might give you the input that you're like I'm not sure, right? So
yeah, I think another thing that like I wanted to get out there is you don't have to like listen to everyone. I know definitely I had a few people that looked over my essays and gave me some suggestions that I was like, I don't really like that. So it's okay to not like take everything. You like, it's your essay and ultimately you have control over what you say and what goes on it. So yeah, I remember I had Mr. Marcus read one of them and he dragged me. He like had so like the whole thing was like red ink and I was like, but yeah, Mr. Liu did, I think you proofread most of them. Like, and yeah, I didn't have too many teachers. And again, I had a few students look over them, like a couple, but yeah, you don't have to take everyone's like criticism and feedback. It's okay to like pick and choose what you like.
I had a question about asking like teachers to revise them, because I do want like to have a good amount of teachers revise my essays, but I've been holding back on asking them because I don't know if there's like a proper way of doing it, or like if you should just go ahead and ask them, like, because a lot of teachers or some teachers, I don't like, some of them don't go to the school anymore, so I don't have that much contact with them, and I don't know if like there's a formal way of asking them for it or if I should just go for it.
I think just my best advice for this is just, like be polite, like acknowledge like that if you can, if you can do this, you have time for this, explain to them like what schools you're applying to, and just be polite and like thank them of course for their time and their effort in that. And whether they have the time to do it or not, just either way be like appreciative of that. Yeah. And like don't be scared. Like, they're usually pretty nice about it. And Mr. Liu will have his process, like you have to like write stuff and like give it in a certain amount of time. So like be respectful to give them enough time as well, because you don't want them rushing through it either. Like when they read it, you want them to really think about it and give you the best advice that they can.
Yeah, I think those are really good pieces of advice for asking. And I think just being able to, one, be respectful of that. Yeah, and I'll share with y'all my process. But my process, I used to have them, you can ask all of them. It has to be printed, has to be on my desk. And like, I don't do Google Doc submissions. Now, obviously that doesn't work with y'all. Okay. So we're going to have to figure out another way to process through that. But it is different. Teachers have different ways, right? That some people can stay organized. Some people can't, right? Like I literally have my process, but who's to say other teachers have the same process or different processes? And yeah, and it's not like the letter rec thing that I shared with y'all about, right? So like editing essays is not about like, you're not thanking like a teacher for like, with like a gift card or something like that, because it's just essay edits. So not like, so just to clarify between that. Isabel, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was just gonna ask, it's kind of what Mr. Liu said about managing time, but how do you manage time when it comes to your schoolwork? Because right now what I'm doing is every single time that I'm like assigned something, I'll do it right away. And then I'll leave like my essays. Like I haven't made a dent in my essays since school started. So like how do you manage schoolwork or like homework? Or how did you guys manage schoolwork and homework with writing the essays?
So like during that time I also worked. So I guess I can kind of answer to that. A good way to do it is just like, first just write down ideas. Like don't even think about any sentences, just write ideas. And I feel like as you start doing that, like eventually you'll be like, well, for me at least, I was just like, oh damn, like I have something to write about that now. Like once I go back to it. And like for me personally, what I would do, I would do the most I could during pathway. Well, kind of. But like for the most part, I do it more like when I was during like the time that I was with the teacher that I want to like work on with it. So like Mr. Liu, or at night. I feel like, I don't know, for me, just like nights, everything like hits. So just try to do it, I guess, like during your free time. And if it helps to just do all your homework first before that, like go for it. But I would say just like, if anything, write down ideas, then work on your homework, and then worry about like the actual like structure of it and like the flow of it later.
Adding on to what Bianeth was saying, I agree. Like every time an idea pops into your head, just write it down like on your notes in your phone or something, because I had so many of those, and those like were really helpful because like if I didn't write it down, I would think of it and then I'd go to like write it and I would just go blank. So I agree with her in that you should definitely like write down your ideas. And in terms of like managing like your time and stuff, I, again, going back to what some of you guys were talking about earlier, use that time and pathway to your advantage. Especially, I think pathways is like the perfect class to really get all the other stuff on the applications done that aren't really essays, because I know writing essays like during school time was just, I didn't do it. It was just, I wasn't like feeling it. It was, I don't know, I just didn't like doing it during school. So I would use that time to go and do my activities, you know, like listing like the clubs that I was in and like my experience and all that, and filling out like all like the other information, because that also is a really important part, especially the activities. I know on the UC application, there's like a whole list and you have to write like a paragraph for each of your activities. So, and those you're gonna have to have someone check as well, because like if you have to put like a certain, like you have to put certain things there. So yeah, I definitely say like use pathways to your advantage.